Well, the symptoms of ADHD started to appear very early in my life. Already at 4 or 5 years old, when I was in preschool, I noticed that the teachers treated me a little differently. Because of my natural behavior, I ended up disturbing the other children, not wanting to follow the rules of the games. Many times I disrupted them, even in an innocent way. They would ask me to hold back, ask me to sit next to them for a little while to calm down a bit. And I experienced this quite frequently. Already at the beginning of my school years, during literacy, I attended a large school. I left that preschool and went to a very big school. There were 35 students per class, and that's when the real problems began. I didn't want to follow the teacher's instructions. I couldn't copy from the board. I couldn't do the assignments. And because of that, I faced a lot of backlash. I was very restricted, including a very significant incident where I was assaulted in the classroom. Because I wasn't enjoying that boring routine, I ended up making a joke in the classroom right after the teacher managed to calm the students down, and it disrupted everything. Everyone started laughing. And she, as if that was the last straw for her, left the room, called the teacher from the next class, who was a much older person. And noticing this unusual situation, I ended up running out and hiding in the classroom bathroom. Then this teacher came in, went to the bathroom, opened the door, and inside she assaulted me. She shook me. I went into despair. I panicked, started crying a lot, and as I was leaving the bathroom with her, hand in hand, I gathered my materials, put them in my backpack, and went to another class, which was this teacher's class. Upon arriving there, I was introduced to the classmates as a new student and tried to hold back the tears because the situation was quite difficult. I was seated at a desk and never returned to my previous class. The next day, I arrived at school, didn't tell my mother anything, believing that what I had done was wrong, very wrong, and I was afraid of my mother's reprisal. So the next day, I tried to follow the entry line of my previous class, where we would be led to the room, and the teacher said no, that she didn't want me in her class. And then I was moved to another class, to another line, and I never went back. This situation of rejection was the first significant rejection I experienced in my life, and these countless situations of rejection throughout life began shaping, even in childhood, my perception of myself. Over the years in school, I tried to escape from it. I tried to avoid this rejection. I sought attention in inappropriate ways. I tried to have more friends, but I always knew, at least at that time, that I was always wrong, that I was not deserving of other people's love, that I was not deserving of other people's empathy, and this gradually undermined my self-esteem throughout childhood, adolescence, and into early adulthood. This is generally what happens with children who have ADHD. And I realized that over the years, this also happened to other people. People who had ADHD also went through various situations of rejection, and the consequences were quite similar. Even facing the natural difficulties of adolescence and the beginning of adulthood, there was also this issue. This matter of not recognizing myself as someone deserving, of not recognizing myself as someone who deserves to be loved, who deserves empathy from others. And this also hindered me a lot during my development. And already in adulthood, I was 28 years old. I was participating in a coaching process, a self-awareness process. And I realized a situation that has a lot to do with this issue of rejection, of not seeing myself as someone who deserves to be around people or someone that people want to have around. I live in Brasilia, My grandmother lives in São Luís do Maranhão, and she had already mentioned to my mother that I was the most distant grandchild, that I didn't keep in touch much, that I didn't call. But I always ignored this factor. And during this process, at 28 years old, I realized that I didn't get in touch with my grandmother, whom I love so much, because for some reason, I imagined that she didn't want to talk to me, that if I called her, I would be a nuisance, I would be bothering her, just as I imagined in countless other situations throughout my life. And that's when I realized that this was truly a problem that was affecting my adult life and had already affected my adolescence and childhood as well. After this process, I began a long journey to deconstruct some things, such as the notion that I am not supported by others, imagining that I am always wrong, that what I do is not good, and this, of course, influences a work environment as it is naturally competitive, and then imagine competing every day with people who have their self-esteem intact, while you always think you are wrong, always thinking that your colleagues are much better than you. So from that point on, I continued, steadfast in my therapy, sought help, sought self-knowledge, sought treatment, help from people, and slowly started changing this within myself. Today, I see myself as a capable person. Today, I have managed to prove to myself that I am a capable person. I now have the project, ADHD Uncomplicated, which has numerous followers, many of whom really appreciate what I share. I am able to reach people. I can help people with their difficulties at home, often using my life examples, which coincidentally are also the examples of these people, and manage, in one way or another, to help at least a little, to touch the daily lives and lives of these people. Today I realized something very important. The precocity of the process I am going through today, starting from the age of 30, if back then, at 6, 7, 8 years old, my mother had had access to information, if the teachers had had access to information, and I, to public policies that could have supported me, embraced me back then, surely I wouldn't have gone through all of this. Surely I wouldn't have had such a difficult adolescence. So lonely because despite the differences, despite being a little different in behavior, a little different in demeanor, and it wasn't anyone's fault. Not mine, not my mother's fault, not my father's fault. I would have recognized my worth. I would have achieved a faster evolution. And today, I wouldn't have had to go through all of this only now, after turning 30, to be able to turn things around. In most of these problems, today, I am proud. I am proud of having taken 4 years to get into UMB. And taking another 8 to graduate. It's the federal university. All my friends had already passed. But I desired it from the depths of my soul. And I wasn't going to give up. As long as I could. And to think that after 7 years at the university, I was dismissed from UMB because I couldn't pass my thesis 3 times. I fought for a year to get back and finally managed to graduate. I don't complain because life was tough. I think it's rewarding to know where I've reached despite everything. It wasn't easy to get here. But the fact that I made it, taking much longer than usual, facing many difficulties that I know others don't face. Naturally, gives me the drive, not just to continue, but to go further. That's why I want to do much more. Because what I want to do is prevent other children, other teenagers, other adults from going through what I went through, because they don't need to go through it. All that is needed are adaptations. All that is needed is a little more help from the state. It's about extending a helping hand a bit more. More aware parents, better informed teachers, a more suitable teaching method. All that is needed is inclusion. The problems don't just stay at school. At work, it has always been difficult and remains difficult. I have participated in numerous internships. I was fired from one, almost fired from another, almost fired from my previous job before becoming a civil servant. And I say that I am quite lucky, because I am convinced that if I hadn't passed a public exam, which is very difficult, and especially more difficult for those with disorders, I would probably be fired and be in a completely different situation. But even so, even managing to get there, I face difficulties. Daily. Today, I work at Banco do Brasil. I almost couldn't get through the 3-month probationary period. I almost got fired. When it came to learning the cashier functions, which is generally what we learn, as soon as we joined the bank, I took a little longer. Instead of 2 weeks, I took 4 weeks, but I managed to learn everything. Despite the longer time. Even so, it wasn't enough to perhaps give my boss confidence. And because of that, he didn't approve me for the position. And the detail of this, what adds to it, is that between the 2nd and 3rd week of my training, a newcomer arrived next to me, and due to a lack of staff, who was in training, trained this newcomer. And after 4 weeks, he got the position I was trying to apply for. This kind of constant situation of failure, frustration, and I can't even say a feeling of incapacity, because we experienced this firsthand. How can I, in training, guide a person who knows as much as I do or less? And that person gets the position I was aiming for. Now, imagine a situation like this throughout your life, from childhood, adolescence, to the beginning of adulthood. It's not easy. You need to have a solid mindset, like a rock, to often not crumble at all. But even so, I think a great virtue that has accompanied me and helped me a lot in this professional journey was the matter of having a lot of persistence, having a lot of resilience. No matter how much life gives impacts, delivers blows like this. It's about not giving up, always chasing after seeking, changing, self-discovering, being open to constantly learning new things all the time. And that's how we manage to navigate around obstacles. For me, one of the things I like most about this project that I have been carrying out over the years, which is ADHD Uncomplicated, is something that the followers themselves, whether they are parents of students, teachers of students, or parents of children. In this case, many of these parents say to me, "Wow, Yuri, only now watching your videos can I understand my child, only now seeing your life stories. I was able to understand why my child behaves that way and to have more empathy with him." Many teachers also thank me, saying, "Wow, now I can understand that student of mine who can't learn, who wants to, but has difficulty." This is very good, because this is a little bit of what I always talk about. Creating a shortcut. What would it be like to create a shortcut? key would be to pass on very important and valuable knowledge to people who do not experience a disorder so that they can understand, know what they are dealing with, and thus they can change the course, even change the direction of this child's life. In other words, they can have real empathy, understanding how these children are and why they behave the way they do. It is very important then to do this in an orderly manner as provided by law. Because by providing the correct information, making this information accessible not only to teachers but also to parents. Many parents, by not accepting the diagnosis, pretend that their child has nothing. They treat them as if they really have nothing, and the child suffers over the days and weeks. The message I leave for everyone with ADHD, whether a child, teenager, adult, or for their families, or for whom, those around them, as I always say, which are the teachers and family, first, never doubt your potential. Never, no matter how much life tries to show you that you are wrong, but even if life tries to show you that you are not capable, never doubt your potential. Pursue it, get informed, don't keep it to yourself, seek help, seek professional help, seek clarification, inform the people around you that the disorder exists and what they can do to help you. Having ADHD, which is my case, is my disorder, is not a reason for incapacity. But if you seek help, all the small problems you face throughout the day can be alleviated, and you can indeed have a much more productive life, a much happier life, a life that is much more rewarding and full of victories, which is what we miss so much throughout life. Well, this is a struggle, and it is a struggle, not just a struggle of one disorder or another. If we take the panorama, all these mental disorders, whether they are learning or neurodevelopmental, or whatever the medical literature says, dyslexia, autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, all are disorders that face similar difficulties, which are the difficulties of inclusion, which are the difficulties that come from misinformation. Misinformation from society, the lack of recognition by society, as if they were invisible people. Society does not recognize them, and when it does, it doesn't know how to act. So, the recognition of mental disorders, implementation of inclusive policies, a lot of information. Information provided by law, workshops, lectures, everything that can inform how to prepare society to deal with these mental disorders so that we do not continue to be invisible and suffering alone, the person and their family. Suffering without being able to find a way out, without seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. So it is very important that these policies are created and implemented because, as I mentioned, all that these disorders often need is some help, some very direct support, some close support, so that they can progress at their own pace, at their own speed, and manage to go far, just like anyone who does not have any of these disorders. Everyone needs to be embraced. All disorders need inclusion, whatever they may be. I am Yuri Maia. Born and raised in Brasilia, I am 35 years old, and I created the project TDAH Descomplicado, where I help thousands and thousands of mothers, fathers, teachers, adults, children, and adolescents with ADHD to understand their disorder and to know what to do to have a better life and a life more powerful and more inclusive